Okay, of course, thank you for coming today. I know it's the last day of Rafah, missing on a chance. 1 hour we could have kind of squeezed in the last piece of macaroni fil forn, or a quick HSP kind of Syria before the Siam starts. It's going to be not a short one. It's going to be around 36, 37, 36 days, something like that. 39. No, not 39. حسبتها. احنا starting tomorrow, 25. It's the 5th tomorrow, and we finish on the 12th. 12th of July. لما تفرق اليومين دول تفرق معايا. لا ما تقوليش 39 وهو 37. انت طبعا قداسة. A lot to say from their own experience, and this sharing of experience. Night like that, where there is special occasions or there is bad weather. And this story, the teacher, one of the respiratory physicians used to lecture me, used to tell us the story. He was asked by a pharmaceutical company to give this talk. They told him that you're going to give the first part of 2 talks. You're going to talk about the medical component, and then the surgeon will talk about the surgical component. So he prepares a presentation, PowerPoint, and everything, and he's excited. And he comes in. It was a kind of a late night discussion like tonight, where it's there was a special occasion of some kind. So he came in, and of course there was nobody there except one person. So I thought, I prepared a lot of talks and a lot of slides and a lot of data and meta-analysis, and there's nobody. I know that it would have been a tough night to give a lecture. Should have postponed it. But anyway, somebody's here, so we'll give him the discussion. At least he can benefit from what I've presented. So he brings up his laptop and he presents all the medical components or medical side of the discussion. And the guy sitting there, he's asking questions and so on. And anyway, he finishes and he's closing the laptop and he's just going out. And the other guy is saying, "Inta رايح فين? Where are you going?" Saying, "خلاص أنا خلصت. I finished my lecture. I'm going out." "Ali, no, I'm going to give the surgical component. You have to sit and listen to me just like I stayed and listened to you." So thank goodness there's more than one person here. So we'll talk today about teens and parents. Or like we just said, the kind of saints with troubled brains. Whether the saints and troubled brains are the parents or the troubled brains are the teens, that's what we're going to discuss together. Just a couple of things that I want to tell you about before we start. Caveats or just disclaimers. Like we were just discussing before, nobody has got it perfectly. You learn as you go. But by the grace of God, these gaps get filled in because God leads the way through His Holy Spirit inside you, through the support of the church, and also through the leadership and the help of the Holy Spirit dwelling in us, making us role models to the kids. So what I'm telling you today is things that I've learned through my journey. My kids now are over 20, 21 and 24. One of them is married. So I don't have any teenagers anymore, but I've went through the tough times of teens, and it's always not easy. And it's always not easy because of them and us, because often we think, there's problems with teens, but no, there's problems with us, and there's some problems with our expectations and our beliefs and delivery. And this is something that we can discuss today, inshallah. So always remember that that God fills in the gaps. Always remember that you're not going to get it right every single time, all the way. And always remember that there is always time for improvement, because sometimes the kids have grown up and there's no point. They're set in the ways. No, kids change. Teens change. Even the most lost of teens, they can change. They can change in 180 degree. I'll tell you the story about a person who became my best friend at one time, and he was a very troubled teen. So my Sunday school, I was probably 15 or something, and I was a goody-goody, go to church, listen, do the homework. So very kind of ماشي جنب الحيط type of Sunday school kid. And then my Sunday school teacher came and told me there was this kid that I want you to become friends with. Let's call this kid Ahmed, for instance. So he said, I want you to become friends with Ahmed. This Ahmed person never came to church. We knew him because he was kind of the icon of Siyah, as in he's just like a lost case in our eyes. So he said, Ahmed, انت عايزني اتصاحب على صايع ده هيخليني اصيع انا كمان. Just give me somebody else. I know that I want to help everybody to come to church, بس مش عايز اصاحب على صايع. I don't know, I want you, this guy is troubled and the parents complained and we want him to come to church. Anyway, so we went to visit him. He didn't want to meet us. So, but he said, okay, we can go for a walk outside. So we went for a walk. And طبعا I'm apprehensive. I feel that he's gonna kind of lead me into disarray. خايف على نفسي قوي مش عارف ليه. But eventually we became friends. And of course I did not kind of redirect him, but what happens is that he became close friends to this servant that at that one time he was my Sunday school servant in like grade 8 or 9. And he started coming to church and started to get to know Abu Namoros, my confession father. He's now in the States. And this troubled teen, we became friends. And we used to go back for walks and stuff like that, but I still kept my guards up. And he was away. He used to kind of drink. And for me, like Asir Asab would be like major. So he used to drink alcohol and he used to smoke and everything, and he kind of tried to commit suicide because he was in love with a Muslim woman and he thought that she's the love of his life, and to me that was kind of the maximum of just siyah. Bit by bit, this kid was the one who used to, he came from a wealthy family, so he had a car at 15. I don't know how he could drive because his father knew people who knew people. He got the license because that's what happens in Egypt. You can get a license when you're like 10 years old if you know the right people. So he used to come and pick me up to go to church. يقول لي انت ايه هتكسل عايزين نروح كنيسة. We want to go to church. What are you talking about? We have to. There is درس الحان. There is مش عارف ايه. And he's the one who used to take me. And in like a few years after, you think that 15, 16, he's established in Siyah, established in being away from the church. When the right input happened, definitely not mine, by any stretch of imagination, it's Uncle Adil, who was our teacher, and Abu Namoros, and a few people in the church. And of course, his parents, who were trying so hard, but they could not get into the right kind of frame of mind to direct him the right way. This kid went kind of 180, and he's now overseas. He's a priest overseas. I'm not going to tell you where, because I was telling the story to some people and they tried to track him down. So just to protect the innocent, we'll just say overseas in the Americas. And that's just how teens can change. So always believe that even though that your kids are the hardest, or the khalas have lost control on them, or whatever kind of fear thing that we have, it's our responsibility to keep trying. It's God's work and responsibility to, if we do our job, for God to do his work with them, and his grace will bring him back if we just know how to, and if we commit to doing the right things. And that's the couple of things that we're going to talk about today. So the verse that we always come back to in this topic. It's from Ephesians, the second verse. Actually, the first 4 or 5 verses, but the second verse, it says fathers, but actually the right translation is parents. And it's talking to every single one of us. Do not provoke your kids or your children, another translation, to anger. Do not provoke them to anger, but raise them in the discipline and the instruction of God. So we're talking about Ephesians. Do not provoke, raise, discipline, and instruction. So we want to kind of elaborate on these things. But at the end, what this verse is telling us, and that's probably the key that I want to tell you about today. The key is to get this balance, and that's what we fail often. And we fail often to get this balance between us and the kids, which results in trouble, and that's why we have a talk about that today. And often there is a loss of balance between mom and dad, and that's why there's always arguments between mom and dad about the balance. What's the balance? The balance between instruction, authority, and trust and love. So this kind of love, discipline, love, trust, balance. Do you trust him? Or do you protect him? Do you say yes, okay, or do you say no? This balance is what we really need to talk about today. And we don't want to make it a talk fest. We just want to go home with some tools and some ideas. So this balance is what sometimes we get wrong. So if we give, of course, love is unconditional love. We're not talking about less love or more love. We're talking about more authority, more strictness, or more trust, and more yes, okay. If you have non-stop strictness and non-stop authority, you end up with a kid that is unable to make decisions, a kid that is always afraid, a kid that has got some inferiority complexes, a kid who's unable to face the world. On the other hand, if you have no discipline, no instruction, no authority, you end up with a kid that's, okay, habibi, Allah, no worries, that's fine, whatever you like. You want to stay up all until 2 a.m., fine. You want to go out with your friends interstate, yeah, by all means. If you say yes, 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 not only are you going to open the door for trouble, but also the kids themselves, you might think, oh no, the kids would love that. They would love that on surface value. But deep inside, every child wants instructions. I was shocked at one time when one of my daughters came, and we're going to talk a lot about my family today so that you can know that it was not all straightforward, and there was lots of kind of amazing moments at the same time. One of her friends told her, I wish and you hear that on TV, but you think, oh, this has never happened. But actually, one of her friends in Latherhall, the school that she used to go to, told her, I wish that my parents were strict as your parents. This kid had everything. The parents were non-available. So the kid did everything. And she knew, every one of us, every kid needs an authority, because authority equals what? Protection. You know that you're protected. They need to feel protected. So this balance is what we're going to try to talk about today. But before we talk about the balance and how to get the balance, I want to explain to you some psychology, some medicine, what's happening in your kid's brain, and probably I'm going to talk to you a bit about what's happening in your brain, the brain of a parent of a teenager. So we're going to psychoanalyze you. Already done that, and this is what I prepared earlier. But I'm going to tell you about what happens in the brains of kids, and this will explain to you why you're logging heads with your kids. Because even though that you said, sometimes you think, my kid has changed, or my kid he's not listening, or there's just completely different than this beautiful and cute girl. She's now a monster. Every single mother that comes into my room in the clinic says, I've got two monsters, especially if they're teenagers. It's not, I've got two girls or two boys, it's monsters. So we get this impression mainly because their brains are going through changes. And if you see these changes, you will understand why you're logging heads with them all the time. And sometimes logging heads with each other all the time. Because we always have, it's very, very rare that we have mom and dad that are always on the same wavelength. It's always different. Either mom is very strict, usually the case, and dad is very relaxed, or the other way around, which is not very, very often, but mom is usually disciplinary, not because she has to. Mom would love to be the fun guy in the equation, but because mom is there all the time, she feels that she's, and dad comes in just to have fun and want the kids to stay up so that they can just enjoy themselves. Mom feels that she's got the obligation to be the disciplinarian. But there's always this logging head between us and the kids and between us, each other. So why do we log heads with the kids? What's happening in their brain? So I'm going to tell you there's quite a few things that are happening in their brain, but I think when we understand it, we're going to be more patient and more pensive in our approach to them, instead of this becoming a fight every time, or kind of a match in how loud we can get so that we can discipline them, or kind of the end of the world decisions, or kind of ad hoc decisions so that we can kind of make them listen. We just need to understand how they think or don't think. So as the brains, as they go into the teenage brain, things happen in many areas in the brain. So without going into specific details, so things happen in the prefrontal cortex. Things happen in a place called the amygdala, or amygdala. Things happen in an area called cerebellum. Things happen in an area called reticular formation. And things happen in a place called the reward receptors. Lots of other things happen as well, but just these things will explain a few things to you. So the prefrontal cortex, what's the prefrontal cortex? What does it do? Yeah? Yeah. Some scientists say the prefrontal cortex is the area in the brain that prevents you from picking a piece of pizza from the guy sitting in the restaurant while you're walking next to him if you're hungry. So what tells you, this is not your pizza, leave it to the guy, you cannot do that, or unzipping your pants and peeing in the middle of the street. The thing that says, this is not right, this is inappropriate. You don't say that, you don't do that. So it is just the kind of higher part in the brain. The kids, not the kids, we used to think that your personality is finalized by the time you're 16, 17. We now know that the prefrontal cortex, the decision-making, the hierarchy area, does not get fully developed until you're 25. So not just 20 or 21, until you're 25. So this area in the brain for them does not allow them to think right. So when you come and tell them, why did you not pick your clothes from the floor in the lounge, which I continue saying that to my 21-year-old child. Hi, Faith, if you're listening. It's like telling your favorite cat, why did you pee on the carpet? It's just, it doesn't register. They do not have this restriction that tells somebody, do not take the pizza. They just, yeah, What's the big deal? And that's why the most common answer, what's the big deal? And تعامل فيها fastly. تعامل فيها fast because you think that this is, then it shows disrespect, it shows this, it shows that. We're talking about how they're going to cope. We think, we have to teach them now so that they can take care of their household. One of kind of Russia's biggest fears is that if Emma doesn't learn how to take care of her room and keep her room clean, how she's going to get married, and how she's going to be able to take care of household, and how she's take care of David, her husband, not the next door neighbor. And that was really a fear. And half of the tough times between Russia and Emma was about cleaning her room, picking up the clothes from the floor, and doing this and that. And tell her something. She has to do this. How can she take care of her household? She's getting married in 2 months. And now, despite having a messy room until the night before marriage, Emma's house probably, as Russia is a very organized person, I think Emma is probably more obsessive about, we go and we take our shoes off, even though that we never took our shoes off in our own house. We take our shoes off, bow. We have to do kind of tiptoe around things because she's become very, so what I'm saying is that if you're worried about things like that, because of the non-development of prefrontal cortex, don't worry. They will absorb stuff. Don't get worked up because this is not them. It's just their brain are not developed. So be patient, guys. That's number one. Number two, the amygdala. Yes? 25. Generally speaking, the female brain will develop quicker, but still it is until 25. So you'll find that they are developing faster, but still they will be fully developed not before that. But having said that, if you're worried about Fadi's kind of, there's always kind of hope. He's still a young man. Yeah, Russia's the same with me anyway. You just have to, like Russia does, just leave him a bit of the house that he can just be messy with his bicycles. That's in my case. The amygdala. The amygdala is an area in the brain that showing this is the brain. The amygdala is an area that controls emotions. And in the teen brain, the amygdala is well developed. This is the corpus callosum. And we already said that the prefrontal cortex is not developed, which means that their emotions are the director of their decision making. So they will decide based on emotion. So sitting down and explaining things to them at length, we're doing this. تعال اقعد الأول. Come and sit down. اقعد. نمرة 1, نمرة 2, نمرة 3, this, that, عشان خاطر ربنا مش عارف ايه. It's not going to make any difference. Logic is not going to make a lot of logical sense. But if there is a reward, if there is an emotion, if there is food, if there is a toy, if there is an outing, if there is an emotional kind of feedback, this is what's going to get them going. So you have to link things with emotion. And they can be very emotional. They can go into extremes of emotion. And that's specifically why we have lot of teens. You don't see, I see a lot of that, especially after COVID, self-harm, kids cutting, especially girls, legs and arms everywhere. Because of this emotion, they get this upheaval of emotion. They get this kind of locked-in anxiety, and they want to have a release. And the release, unfortunately, sometimes is just self-harm. But they are a bundle of emotions. So when you see your child, or you see your teenage child full of emotions, it's not because he's just wired up or because he's having drugs. It's just because the amygdala is firing up. The cerebellum. So the cerebellum usually is an area in the brain, in the back of the brain, that is responsible for balance, but also is found to be the area of abstract thinking, like thinking about abstract concepts, like God, like the church, like the body of Christ, like the transcendence of God, like the Holy Spirit, sometimes love, sometimes consciousness. And they are sometimes not aware of that because the cerebellum has not been myelinated fully yet. So this abstract ways of thinking, and that goes back to our discussion about church. for you to try to stress the importance of something like family because of love and because of our connection, our blood connection or connection with each other, and we're always going to be there for you, and I'm going to love you, that's going to always kind of go over their head. How much you want to show them love. You're going to show them love through emotions, but you're not going to show them love through talk. I remember, I told you the story before, I remember this time where Rasha was talking to Emma. She was less than a teen at that time. She was, I think, 8 or 7 or something like that. And she was telling her, you know how much I love you. I give my love for you, and you are the apple of my eye. And I would at any moment I give you my life so that you can live. And she's listening. Yes, mom. Yes, 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 mom. And then, of course, Rasha finished her spiel. Of course, she expects some emotional reaction, like a tear, and then they hug each other. And I love you, mom. Thank you for, I'm so blessed to have you as a mother. Yani, something like that. So Rasha finishes, and then Emma looks at her and says, you know, mom, so Rasha's expecting that something deep. When I blow into my hand like that, the air hits my forehead. And Rasha, اقرب بت اقرب مش هقول لك أي حاجة تاني. So, same with the church. If you sit down and say, this church is our home, it's the people in church is the body of Christ. Christ came. This is not going to something will attract them to church. In this time, they will come to church because of friendships. Like the story of Ahmed that I told you. He wasn't attracted with anything, but because he had friends. And then he had friends, and then the friends led him to Abuna and to a confession father and to this and to that. And after we used to come to church together because we used to play table tennis together and this and that, he's now a blessed father in the church because he found Christ. But the abstract concepts are not developed. Reticular formation. The reticular formation is an area in the brain that helps us to sleep. So it's an area in the midbrain. It's like a Christmas tree. And the Christmas tree we all have is lit up like a Christmas tree. And these lights are, this is what does the circadian cycle for us, this rhythm of wake, sleep, wake, sleep, wake, sleep. You wake up at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. In teenage time, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. And you just go to bed again at 8, 9, 10, 11. So this is the lights fire up and you wake up, and the lights dim down and you feel sleepy and you go to sleep. The reticular formation in the brain of a child, not a child, in the brain of a teenager does not start dimming down until 1, 2 a.m. That's the way they are. So when you have this argument between husband and wife, the wife wants, usually the wife or the husband, wants the kids to go to sleep at 8, 9. No, we're going to go to sleep at 8, 9. We don't want to ruin the discipline. The kids need to sleep. And the father, of course, he is the fun guy. We want to watch some TV. We want to do that. We want to do this. He came back from work late and he wants to have some fun with the kids. Welcome, guys. And there's this struggle, and the child is unable to sleep because this reticular formation is not developed. It is not allowing them to sleep. So when they stay up on the iPad, of course the iPad or the phone adds insult to injury. So I'm not saying it's all reticular formation, let them stay on, but this adds, of course, the lights and the stimulation and the phone calls and yes. No. That's why, a great question. That's why there is a big, you might have heard that last year or the year before, there is a big direction in Sweden and in Scandinavia in general. Norway has started them. Belgium, which is the best country in the world, they are starting school late. And they're starting to adopt that here. So that's a great question. There is a big direction into that based on this. So this has been discovered probably 6, 7 years already. Belgium started to do that 5 years ago. And we are trying, because it's so hard to wake them up. It's so hard to wake them up, especially teens, because of this issue. So not being able to go to sleep or staying up, it's partly friends and partly Facebook and Instagram, of course. But also it is physically hard for them. So don't go into logging heads. Just remember that the reticular formation is up. So when you go in and he's on Facebook, you understand that this reticular formation, just maybe get him to study and take the phone away. But you know that it's not all his fault. Don't think that this is just my child is just disobeying me. Last but not least, there's quite a few things, but the reward receptors, or the receptor for rewards in their brain, start firing up in an acute way. So in adults, it is usually a plateau, goes up at a plateau. This quick rise in the reward receptors, especially oxytocin and sometimes dopamine, makes them not calculate risks clearly. So when you have this huge reward, now we have a reward system as adults. We know that you're going to do this, there is a reward. We're going to be disciplined, you're going to do this, you're going to do the right thing, there's a reward, either an emotional reward or a physical reward. There is a reward system, and it is a balanced reward system. But in their case, it is just like taking a big hit of a drug, a big hit of heroin. So the reward system fires up so acutely that they, and of course, marry that with a bad or an undeveloped prefrontal cortex. So they want the reward, but they don't have anything to tell them, now jumping off this cliff will break your neck. So you don't see many adults jumping off the cliff in Dramana or in Mount Martha. You know this cliff in Mount Martha where kids jump. It's always teenagers, because no prefrontal cortex, big high reward stimulation, and you get all these kids doing stunts that you kind of go and check on the Instagram Reels or Facebook Shorts, whatever guys you kind of go on, and you see all these people kind of breaking their legs or breaking their arms or doing this and that because of this reward thing. So that's what happens in their brain. What happens in your brains? So we're not going to go into so much details to protect the innocent, but I just want to talk about we want to talk about fear. What are you guys afraid of? What's your biggest worry? As parents of a teenager, what do you worry about most? Tell me. What gives you sleepless nights when it comes to teenage years? When you talk to your husband, when you talk to your wife, هتقول لها أنا خايف لحسن. Yes. Beautiful. The peer pressure will affect them. What's the wrong path? What's your worry about mostly? Churchy, future. Okay, so away from church. Peer pressure away from church. That they're not going to grow. So they have bad schooling. So afraid of if they don't get education, because we know that education doesn't really do much. Also, people that haven't finished their high school, haven't finished, they can be successful and valid and solid and balanced. But what is your fear? That lack of education will lead to what? And then what? Because job is not really the end all. Lots of people have got businesses without any kind of education. Okay, so financial trouble. Loneliness. So you worry that they're going to be lonely if they don't find a partner, you mean? Okay, so they're going to be ostracized because of their Christianity. Okay, good, valid one. What else? As parents, what kind of From? Sorry? Depression. Yeah, that's a fear that you worry that the kid will be depressed or anxious. Yes. Psychological issues. So you're protecting them because you're afraid that they what? Physical injury? Drugs? Okay. So physical. You know, yes. Wrong beliefs that will go with the church. That peer pressure or anything will take away from church and lead, of course, to wrong beliefs, of course. Do you know what? Any other fears? Yeah, so they're going to go all the way out to being incarcerated. So this would be back to physical. Main thing is pre-pressure, you're right. You're right. What would you say? So these are some of the things that parents fear. I'm going to tell you a couple of things that you feel, but you haven't said it, but I know you feel it. But before I tell you those ones, I want to ask you, what do you think that a teen fears most? Okay? Belonging, accepted, can go with that. Belong. Not popular, not what else? Not loved, nice. Got 3, 4, and 5, or 2, 3, 4, and 5. What's number 1? Yeah, this is one of their fears, because they feel that disappointing will not meet them up. Still number 1, the number 1 not, which is the main fear for a teen. Successful is good as well. I don't think they think that far. They want to succeed in their kind of, what's the fighting game? What's that? Midnight? Fortnite, yes. Fortnite. That's probably the furthest you think. Not being respected is there, but they're happy. The biggest fear for a teenager is not being seen. Seen. Not seen as becoming invisible, but being noticed. Yeah. Not being seen in the class. Not being seen in the house. Not being seen in the street. They crave noticeability. Whether this is going to be notoriety, whether it's be doing the right things or the wrong things. So this is their main fear. And that's why some of them, a lot of them, they do things. ده كان كويس. ده كان ممتاز. ده كان ماشي جنب الحيط. He was the best kid. He's gone all the way to the left. He's gone all the way to the wrong side of the law, whatever. Because of that, they stay invisible. They don't want to be invisible. The worst depression, you talk about depression, the most common reason for depression is the low self-esteem that results from them thinking that they are not being seen. They are not attractive. They're not good enough to be part of the team. They're not good enough to be part of a cheerleading team. They're not good enough to do this or that. So this is their main fear. Add to that ba'a, so let's write notice. If you see them and notice them, even if you don't appreciate them, that's a good thing for them. That's a good thing in their eye, even if they do the wrong thing, because there is some kind of recognition. And that's why they don't have a problem logging head with you all day long, because this means I've got a personality, I am there, I am seen, I am good enough to drive dad crazy or mom crazy. That makes them feel that I've become a person. One of the biggest fear as parents, of course these are, so this is the biggest fear as teen. The biggest fear as parents, I wouldn't say that this is less than any of those, but it's there. It's loss of control. So as a parent, you worry because they're starting to have a personality. Before, خش نام, حاضر. Not in all cases, but some of the time they're حاضر, but after that there's no much حاضر. حاضر as in okay. They go from 11 to 12 or 13, لا, اعمل اللي انت عايزه. So they come in that way, and you think, oh, I'm losing control. And even though they don't want to admit it, but this is one of the biggest fears in parents. Parents fear that they are losing the connection with their kids. So we'll make that number 6 and 7. So one of the fears that you feel in your heart, but you might not want to admit, that you're afraid that you are losing their love or losing their respect. Because before, yalla, let's go for a bike ride. Yes, let's go, Dad. Let's go for a walk. Yes, let's go, Dad. Let's go watch this movie together. Yeah, please, let's go, Dad. That's fantastic. That's the best time. They go into teens. Let's do this. Nah, malish nifs. Let's watch a movie together. Nah, I'm talking to my friends on the phone. Let's just go. You always loved fishing with me. Maybe I'm talking about myself. It's a sore point. Nah, Dad, fishing, it's too cold on the boat and it's too smelly. Smelly? You used to kind of swim inside the fish. You loved fishing with me, and the bait, you used to kind of put bait on your hair. No, I don't like fishing anymore. And you get disappointed because you feel like they're growing up and you're losing them. So deep inside, one of the fears of parents, and that's why sometimes we hold on to them, and sometimes we smother them because we fear that they were losing them. They love their friends more than they do us. They love their Facebook. They love their media. They love their phone. Of course, that's another story about media and phones and friends and so on. So you fear that you're losing their love, sometimes losing their respect as well. And sometimes you feel like you're losing control. And because we fear that we're losing control, we end up parenting from fear. And that's the worst type of parenting, because it leads to wrong parenting. Tell me. 7:30, good. So 5 minutes, I'm going to talk to you 5 minutes, and then we'll start questions and answers for 15 minutes, and then we'll so because of this fear that we have, I'm not going to go into your brains because it's going to be too painful, but there are bases for these fears, or 6, 7 reasons for the fears that you guys said, and we added to that. And their fear that they have, or they change the brain, we start having this monster at home. The monster is not the kids. And the monster also is not a dad or a mom. What's the monster that we have at home? A situation, a pattern. Once we start talking, we go into this pattern. And usually it's either mom or dad. It's usually, thank God, it's not both. But I see that all the time when mothers come to me and says, my husband, and my daughter, or my husband and my son, they are fighting all the time. Even though they were best friends. Or the father would come to me and say, my daughter and my wife, they are fighting all the time. Because we fall into this pattern. خلاص بقى في نظام. There is just like, it's like a movie and everybody's playing his role. I, as a dad, I want to show discipline. I, as a teenager, I'm going to show that I am a responsible and a person and I've grown up and ما تقدرش تكلمني, you cannot talk to me like that. And it is a pattern. And this pattern is the monster. And the monster eats up all the joy at home. The father wants to establish authority, or the mother wants to establish discipline. And we're forgetting about that there is do not provoke, and there is discipline. But also there is raise and there is instruction. So there is this balance between the discipline and the love, between the hardness and the softness, between the trust and between the authority. There has to be this balance. If we lose this balance and we parent from fear, we're going to drive them away. And we're going to end up with problems. And these problems can be chronic problems that can continue all the time. And we pray that this doesn't affect them long term. But most of the time, even with anxiety and with depression, with people leaving church and so on, there is a parental issue. Unfortunately, there's always a parental issue. And it stays with them. And unfortunately, it repeats itself sometimes as they get into marriages and relationships in the future. So we end up with this. We love them. We love our kids. But sometimes we don't know how to balance this love. Somebody said, love is the art of distance. Do you know what it means? What does it mean? Love is the art of distance. What do you think this means? The art of distance. Yes. So teens, one of the biggest fears, like we said, is feeling that the kids don't love us as much as they used to love us before, or they don't care, or they got their own life now and they're going to drift away from us. And we tend to, this is something we see all the time. She used to come and give me these big hugs. She doesn't hug me anymore. She doesn't want to have a bar. She doesn't want to talk to me, let alone hug me. And this is something that hits you real bad in the heart, because you used to enjoy hugging them. You used to sit down, they come and they put their head on your lap and they cuddle with you. And you think, you just want to take them back. I love you. You don't know how much I love you. But love is the art of distance. And trust me, they come back. Almost always they come back. Because they know that they love you. That you love them. And that's why sometimes, and one of the biggest peeves for moms is that why do they hug dad and they don't hug me as much? Because dads are not huggers anyway. So dad sits there and the daughter or the son comes and sits next to dad and puts his arm around dad, or she sits on dad's lap, no matter how old she is, and she doesn't do the same with mom. Because the dads are not smothering. And when the moms realize that and say, okay, I'm going to take a distance, it's very hard for moms because the mothers want to eat their children out of love. If you step back, they always come around. Because they want, contrary to what you think, they think they want to have their independence. No, they don't want to have their independence. They still want you. They want your appreciation. Even though that you look in their eyes and say, they don't care about me anymore. If I die tomorrow, مش هتفرق معهم. But actually they want mom and dad. And they still, even in teenage crazy years, crazy brain years, they still crave for moms and dads' attention and moms and dads noticing, moms and dads' praise, moms and dads' support. Because you're the prime supporter. Even on a basic level, not on a love level and a support level, but even on a basic providing level, they know that my food, my clothes, that we're talking about even just primary level of need, they know that it comes from you. So they want to be on this, subconsciously at least, on your good side, because you're going to continue providing for them. They don't think it. And because of this conflict, sometimes we drive them away because we want to smother them and they want to have their independence. But they always come around. Always come around. I was talking to, yesterday I was late because I had a meeting at St. Athanasius. And when I came back, Faith is telling me, Dad, I want you to let's connect, because I was worried about you, and there's this app on the phone where you can chase your your Apple thing, and you find your phone, and you can find your satchel, but you can find people as well. So she kind of said, okay, I need to find where you are. And then she's looking at her sister. Says, that's amazing. If you asked me this question 3-4 years ago, I said, I would never, ever give Dad this chance to know where I am. But now I'm chasing him, and I want to know where he is, and I want him to know where I am. So you think, they definitely they do come around. They do come around. She's now asking me to please know where I am. I want you to know where I am, wherever I am. Before they say, no way, I'm not going to even get him to, I don't want him to be friends with me on Facebook at all, because I don't want him to know what I'm doing. But they come around. So be patient, because God fills in the gaps. So in 5 minutes, I want to talk to you about types of parents, but there's not going to be time for it, because we want to have some questions and answers, kind of gain knowledge from each other's experience. But because of the fear, there is lots of types of parents. There is helicopter parenting, as you know. There is tiger mom and tiger dad parents. There's something we call snow plow parents. There is defensive parenting. Defensive parenting, it's very common in Egyptians, where you parent not because you're helicoptering or snow plowing or fuel injecting or tiger. We're going to talk about that maybe next time or in the future. But the defensive, it's Egyptian type of parenting, because so you're worried often about, not you, but some of us, worry about the kids because we love them. But also we worry about الناس هيقولوا ايه. ازاي تيجي الكنيسة لابسة كده. It's not, you're not supposed to wear this short thing, because you're a Christian, you've got the body of Christ, and you eat the body and the blood of Christ, and this is not appropriate. But the way I come across, لا الناس يقولوا على جاي كنيسة كده تقول لك إن إحنا ما عرفش نربي البنت. How can you come to church like that? You say people did not know how to raise her properly in Christian and proper Coptic manners. How do you do, what kind of results like that? We send you to this expensive school to get this result. So we always think in defensive way, and not defensive as in defensive protecting them, it's protecting us. And sometimes the way we want to protect them is because we love them. Of course, there's no discussion of that, but it is also because we worry about how we will be seen, how our discipline, how our technique will be seen or perceived by people. So this is defensive for us. So just be aware of that. You have to really think, when I am, and we discussed that in details in the Eagles group, how sometimes when we admonish, when we're talking Ephesians, if you remember David, this admonishing, this raising, this discipline that we have, the word for discipline is admonish in the NASB, this admonishing, or this punishment, if you want to call it, comes not because you want to teach them something, but you can punish them because what they did offended you, because they answered that way, or they did not listen to me. So I am punishing them because I want them to learn never to do that again. Punishment is due to the fact that I want them to learn, to grow their personality and become better people and better Christians. Now, I am retaliating, or I am giving them a punishment because that's not right, because they offended me. So it's out of my ego, not out of my fatherhood. So finally, I'm going to give you just 4 instructions in the next 2 minutes that I used, and with the grace of God, that they worked very well. And I think that these are keys that we can use together, knowing our mind, being aware of how we think, and being aware or understanding how they think. So, number 1, be informed. Be involved. And I'm going to explain to you how this makes a huge difference to their makeup. So being informed, I'm going to tell you all of them first, and then we go to be informed, be involved, be clear, and be strict. Be informed means be aware of how you think, and be informed of how they think. That's what we did today. But also be informed in every single detail of their life. And know that you have the right to do that. and execute your right to do that.
Isn't that helicopter parenting?
No. Helicopter parenting means that you're going to prevent them from doing everything, and you're going to be hovering around them because you're not allowing them. لا 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 ما تركبش ده، لا ده ما تطلعش ده، لا ما تخرجش ده، لا ما تقدرش تروح لوحدك. That's helicopter parenting. That you'll prevent them because you're trying to. You're not allowing them to do mistakes. You're not showing them trust. Okay? But being informed means I want to know your friends. I want to know your messages on Facebook. And you have the right to do that. Some say, no, they tell you, they play this card. No, this is my privacy. مش حاجة اسمها privacy. You have the right to every single password they have as parents. That's if you are going to be allowing them to have phones in the first place. In my case, I didn't allow my kids to have phones until they were high school, and no Facebook until year 12. No, at that time there was no Instagram or what have you when they were kids. And this is something that is valid. And I know lots of people talking to Rosemary from our church, and Rose, the kids don't have phone until even after year 12. They don't have phones. But if they do, you have the right to have access to everything. You need to be, and it's not helicopter. I want to know your friends. This birthday, مين راح مع مين there, أنت راح مع مين أهله, مين صحابه. Be informed. You need to know. And you need to be involved. Go in, meet the parents, meet the soccer parents, meet the basketball parents, meet their friends, see their friends, get involved with every single thing they do. And it's great to do it early. Because if when they come teens, you were busy at work, you're away, you're traveling, مش عارف إيه, and then you come, you feel that you're losing them, you feel like you're losing control. Okay, now I want to come with you to soccer. I said, no, this is an act. They will see through it. So start early and be involved in what they love and be excited about what they love and be with them. If they like to listen to a certain song, if they like to go on a certain app, if they like to play a certain game, be involved with them. Join with them. Go down with them. Go dirty with them. Be involved. The two things that can protect your kids is for you, for them to see your love and for them to see Christ's love. And the balance of this love is something of an art. Not smothering and not being too distant. Being involved, being there for the soccer game, being involved for their music, being involved in their debate team, going there, that shows them without smothering that you're there for them. If they're shy, you want to wait outside, that's fine. Just be there for them. And they love that. They love that. At all ages, they love that. Be clear as in, be clear in your instructions and start it early. Don't say, oh, no, I'm starting to lose them. I'm going to put instructions now. Start early. If you want to put curfew on early. If you want to put time for Facebook, put time early and be very clear. Our agreement is 1 hour. Our agreement on TV is that. Our agreement in terms of birthdays, you're not going to go to birthdays except for this agreement. You're not going to sleep over. There's no sleepovers at all. And I advise you not to have sleepovers, full stop, regardless of who. Have these agreements. Have these agreements now. And make it clear. And make an agreement with them. This is how we do it. يتنططوا بقى يخبطوا راسهم في الحيط. They make backflips. They do. They. What doesn't matter. This is your responsibility, and this responsibility has been to you by Christ Himself. And Christ will ask you about these things. So be strong and be strict. Follow through. Be strict. Don't be afraid. And strict, I don't mean be dogmatic and be like authoritative just because you want to show ego. Be strict means follow through. Sorry, we said the curfew is this time. The birthdays, we're not going to, the fish sleepovers. But okay, come, they can sleep over us if their families are there. But we said no sleepovers. They will always try to push the envelope. They always try to push the line. You be strict. اتفقنا على كده. And there's some agreements. I was just talking to one of the mothers of the church, not mothers of the church as in saints of the church, but one of the mothers in the church that we go to, about she tried many things and nothing worked. And then I told her, what about having a contract? And writing down a contract with clear instructions work magic. They want something, they want a phone, they want this, they want that. Okay, خلاص. يبقى أنا في contract هنكتبه مع بعض. Contract some other time, but خلاص contract, I'm going to get you the phone on the account of أنت هتعملي كذا أو أنت هتعمل كذا. And we have to be clear. We have to be believable. The contract has to be acceptable. There has to be respectability. There has to be availability. Few things. Be informed, be involved, be clear, and be strict. And hold on to your horses. This is an authority that has been given to you by Christ. Fathers, do not provoke. Raise, discipline, admonish, and instruct. That's your job. Yes. Yeah. No, have rules. Be informed. Sit down with them. No. My kids are 3 years apart. And Emma had a curfew that Faith did not have this curfew. Had a shorter curfew at that time. Emma had a phone. Faith did not have a phone. Emma had Facebook. Emma had Facebook, and Faith did not have Facebook. And she knows that when I get to this, and she wait until I get to 12, نفسي أبقى Facebook. عارفة إن no, ما فيش اسمعنا. When you're in her age, you be strict, and you know the reason that there is difference, and you tell her that you lay the law. You lay the law, and this is the law. This is your responsibility, and don't soften. You have to follow through. And they always come around. They always come around. They always come and say, "Thank goodness for that you brought us up this way." And this is something that I can tell you. And they come around. Yes. Course. Great question. Look, it will escalate because, be prepared. Be prepared. Because they will push back. They do. They will have to push back. The only way, and this is something that not only for teenagers, but younger kids and older kids, is this calm approach, you being the one in control. And this is good for kids that are 2 years old and good for kids that are 20 years old. The thing that causes or allows the kids to rebel and it becomes a screaming match and the monster, which is the pattern, comes out is if they have a hope of you giving up or giving in. Or, that's from their side, or you having this feeling that you're losing control. So you're going to scream, and they're going to scream because they've got the hope. If they scream louder, you might change your mind. And you feel, not you, but I would feel, I'm losing control. فلازم أزعق علشان يسمع كلامي. No. So, of course, expect the tide, expect the war, but be in the surety that the Holy Spirit is inside you. The Holy Spirit will kind of work, but you're doing that not because of ego, you're doing that because of love and because of your responsibility. This is the law. Let's sit down and see. من غير ما نتخانق, without kind of having a screaming match. This is my responsibility, and this is the instructions that God has given me. And involve others. Involve mom, involve the confession father, involve others. It has, at the end, to be you. And it has happened that I said no, and they went to their confession father. Confession father said, maybe. And I said, no, still no. Really? I said, no, I don't agree with your confession, Father. I'm going to say no still. And you stick to your guns. This is your responsibility. Be the main thing that will convey authority, is conviction. أنت convinced that you're not doing that because of كلام الناس, because منظرهم إيه في الكنيسة, الناس هيقولوا عليا إيه. You're convinced you're doing that for their spiritual life, number one, for their success, for their protection, for their personality, to be a balanced person in the community. You're convinced doing that. And because you're right, you stick to your guns. And when they know that, there's no wavering, they're going to try through mom first. They're going to try مش عارف ايه طب صاحبتي عملت كده طب هكلم ابونا شوف. They will try millions of things and then end up with a screaming match as well. Monster will come out because pattern. You kill the pattern. You kill the monster. Is that? Sure.
Just in regards to the contracts,
Yeah, yeah. Look, the idea of contract, even though that sometimes it might seem kiddish, actually it works. Actually, it works between husband and wife. Because one of the biggest problems in this agreement is you said, but I said, but you said maybe, what can I do? طب لو عملنا كده. No, when he said that, it did not mean this. But when it's written out of love, and when there is clear parameters of the contract. So the contract, for instance, is about getting a phone. خلاص, they are year 12 and they're getting a phone. I'm going to get you a phone, but there has to be this. So when I was talking to this mother from our church, it was about year 12. And this year 12, the child wanted the mother's support for year 12, but when the mother said, okay, let's do this, let's do that, let's study, let's get a tutor, the kid said, no, I don't want this. So the kid wants something and doesn't want it in the same place, and the mother said, I don't know what to do. So what can I do? So we talked about the contract, and the contract has got some parameters that we need to adhere to. I'm going to talk about it fast just because of the question that we have. Where's the camera? Okay, so this contract really works, and it can be fun as well, but there has to be some clear instructions and conditions. So the contract has to be believable. Believable means that I need to believe you. So I'm going to get you a phone, okay? But I need to believe, I need to have access, I need to believe you. You have to bring me all the facts. I need to know every single detail. I want to be abreast of who you're going to be on or who you're going to see. Whatever it is, you put in the terms. I have to believe what you're doing. So I have to believe what you're doing. So believability. Number two, there has to be availability. Availability means that you need to be available with the phone. We're talking about the phone. I have access. If this gets broken and I want to talk to you about something that happens, this kind of believability, I want to be able to have access to the phone. I want you to be able to come and say, ما فيش بقى أنا أتكلم بكرة, I'm going to talk at the weekend, leave me now. No, you need to be available whenever we have a problem so that we can discuss it and come to a condition. Have we continued the contract? Are we breaking the contract? Okay? Pardon? A breach of the contract. There always has to be respectability. Of course, what I'm writing is useless because nobody can read it. But anyway, you get the drift. There has to be some respect in the contract. Respect means that whenever we sit down and discuss the terms of the contract or a breach of the contract, we will have to do that with respect. With respect. Not with a screaming match, not with لا دي حقي, مش عارف ايه. There has to be respectability. And this contract is based on responsibility. Responsibility means I'm going to do my part, I'm going to get you the phone, I'm going to get you this, I'm going to pay this, but your responsibility is to abide by this. You need to be believable, you need to be available, you need to be respectable, and you need to be responsible with the way you're going to do that. Apply that to the phone, apply that to the outing, apply that to the camp, apply that to if they are going with their friends to an outing to the city, apply that. There has to be a clear thing. You can do that verbal, definitely better writing, but it does work, and it works well. There's lots of things about the contract that we can talk about, but it does help a lot. Say, when you do that, say, well, we agreed that we're going to have, we can be on the phone because I'm going to download this. No, I never said that. No, you said that. And you were standing in the kitchen when you said that. No, let's bring out the contract. Yes, we said 2 hours. It works. مفيش كلام كتير. It does work. And like I said, they always come back. They always say, Mom was right, or Dad was right, and I wasn't. There's this very funny statement by Mark Twain, American writer. He says, when I was 14, my dad was so ignorant I could not stand the guy. But when I turned 20, I found that he has become, in 6 years, so wise and so informed. I don't know how he did that in 6 years. Do you get that? Do you get what he said? So he realized after 6 years that all what his dad said was right. There was lots of wisdom, but he is the one who grew up to understand that. But at that time, he thought that my dad is disconnected and ignorant. So they come around. They eventually just put in the right thing. Don't yield to parenting from fear. Don't yield to wrong concepts. Try as much as possible to link him up to Christ, link him up to the church. Get this life or this praxis or this Orthodox life that we have to be part of your day-to-day life. We're not going to go into kind of the church at home because it's another topic for another day. But the safeguard is for them to see you practicing church life, for them to see you enjoying the Bible, for them to see you having a personal life with Christ, for them to see you praying, for them to see you enjoying communion. And in turn, they will eventually have a personal life with Christ themselves. So you leading by example makes a big difference to them. So work on these two. Them having a personal connection with Christ and them having a personal connection with you. Personal connection with Christ is another topic. Personal connection with you is what we talked about today. Be informed, be involved, be clear, be strict, and maybe add one, be confident. Five. Yes? Look, yes, so the question, guys, is how do you activate or actuate the consequences? How do you confront them if you find that they have broken the contract? Yeah, look, two things that we need to address here. And that probably goes back to your question, which was a great question. The confidence. I was talking to a servant from San Verena a couple of days ago and was telling them, how do you approach the fact that your kids, do you talk to them about reading the Bible? And he says, no, I don't want to talk about reading the Bible. I'm gonna lose them. So they continue being friends without going into the nitty-gritty. And sometimes we are worried about them or their feelings, and that can leave lots of gaps in the upbringing. I was talking to some Mary's parents last year, and we're talking about, it was a session about the media, and I was telling them that you have to get their password. They have to know. You have to have access to the phone. And after talking for an hour, Aluli, can you please come home and tell them that? Because we're too scared of telling them, I want your password. So don't worry about their feelings. Confront them. Tell them, I know that this has happened. I'm disappointed. I love you. But I think that you should not be afraid of telling me something like that. Let me know what made you do this without telling me. Do I come across as an angry parent? Do I come across as a scary parent? Do I come across as a non-connected parent? How can I understand, you not understand that this is wrong and this is something that should not happen when there is a connection between us? Let me know how we can prevent this from happening again. And be strict. Follow on with the caveat. Follow on with the repercussions. There has to be, in the contract, there has to be a detailed contract. If I find that you have not been believability means you have to be honest in what you do. If I find that there was no believability, then there'll be consequences. The phone will be taken away from you, or it's going to be taken away from for a week, or going to be taken away from a month, whatever you want to do. But there has to be consequences, and you have to not pussyfoot around and just go head on. I found that. Let's find out why this happened. So sometimes as parents, we just jump onto the punishment without taking this as a chance for growth, because it becomes an ego thing. ازاي يكذب عليا؟ ازاي ما يقولش كده؟ أو ازاي أعرف إن هو من all this thing. So it becomes a personal thing. But teenagers, we know there's prefrontal cortex issues and all that. So even though that we understand them, this is not a chance for them to get away. We still have to be all these. So yeah. Tell me, you've got something in your mind. Pardon? Okay, look, they will deny, they can deny. They always have to get away with it and say, and tell them, okay, this is, I know that for a fact, but I'm going to take your word because I love you and I trust you. And if you are saying that, I will trust you. And trust, يعني بمزاجي. But if I see this happening, I don't have proof. If you have proof, you have to be strict. But you don't have proof, you have to show them that there's trust. So if you're going to be activating your caveats, activating your kind of consequences, have proof. So once you have proof, go for it. If you don't have proof, make this as a chance for growth. Allow them to be trusted and give them a chance to be, to grow. And more often than not, this will be a chance for them not to do that again. There was one in the back, and then Fedi. Somebody in the... شو سؤال كان في سؤال ورا؟ لا مفيش. طب فادي. Like we said, the contracts can be up to I was just telling Belinda, it can be any. The contracts are very, very. They're not demeaning in any way. How many times? Not talking about you guys. How many times there has been an argument between husband and wife, and say you said this and you said that? Many times, many times. I mean, sometimes you think, okay, I wish this conversation was recorded because I think my recollection of what happened was this. Of course, you cannot have contract in every single bit in your life. But when there is crucial things, you can have, okay, let's sit down and write what you think and what I think and how we can come to terms with that. So I think that up to any age, if you feel that there is unclarity in the situation, if you feel that it might be better for that to be done on writing, it is not like a prenup where there's a lack of trust in it. It is putting it down on pen and paper so everyone knows what are the expectations, and it works at any age. Anything else, guys? Yes, Abby. Beautiful. Good. No, a great question. Thanks, Happy. It's a great question. Look, your boundaries in terms of pushing is two. It's your love for Christ, and the grace of God will not only help you. The Holy Spirit works in us in the sacrament of marriage. Sometimes, just to give you an example, when the Holy Spirit works in us in the sacrament of marriage, it connects husband and wife together. But funnily enough, it does work in the marriage concept, in the marriage union, in the parents as well, so they can accept the daughter leaving and the son leaving and accept this. So it works different ways. And as the grace of God works in your marriage, it works in your parenthood style as well. What counterbalances the grace of God in our life through our spiritual life, through our prayer and through the Bible and through partaking of the body and blood of Christ and the blessings of the saint, what counterbalances that is the ego. So the ego not only affects your spiritual life and connection with Christ, but the ego affects even your ability to parent properly. not you, but in general. So sometimes we parent out of fear because of the ego, because of ourselves, because we don't want our kids, my kid, to turn out this way, or my kid to turn that way. And that's what makes us either nonchalant, as in خلاص بقى اللي عايزين يعملوه, or too authoritative and too strict. And the kids sense that. There was a mother that was talking about her relationship with her child, and he said that she thought that everything was good until she went into her child's room and she saw a note written on the child desk saying, sometimes I feel afraid from mom. Even though that she was not aware of that at all. So sometimes, back to your question, sometimes the kids are scared of making a mistake, which on surface value would be good, but on deep value, you need to understand what is the main source of their fear. Is the source of the fear not disappointing you? Is the source of the fear them being too OCD in terms of their cleanliness or their work or their school performance? What's the source of that? And the counterbalance of that, the antidote for that, they're being afraid of making mistakes, is your love and showing of your love. And sometimes, and I'm not talking about you, I'm talking in general, as much as we think we pass on to our kids our love as unconditional love, but often it comes across as conditional love. Because we have often been raised up in that way. Even though that our parents loved us unconditionally, but inadvertently, when a kid comes in and he's got 10 out of 10, or whatever they grade them this way, good, bad, ugly, whatever. I don't know what the grading at school these days. The kids have left school a while ago. So when the kid comes in with a great mark and say, oh, well done, that's awesome, come on, man, that's awesome. And then one comes in with just a pass, say, that's not bad, I'm sure you can do better. Even though that you love them unconditionally, but this comes through as conditional love. One got the pump fist and so on, give me a hug and do that again. Another one got, so that it comes across as conditional. And this extrapolate that. So I'm not saying that about you, but sometimes the kids are afraid to fall because they crave so much of our love, so much of our attention, and they don't want to disappoint mom and dad. And the only way to do that is not to encourage them to make mistake, which I know where you're coming from, but is to show them more of this kind of, you don't need to be perfect for me to love you. Does that? Yes, Fadi. You good? Was that Pacino, Haiga? Yes. As a lawyer? So, do I have a phone call? Can I get one phone call? Yes. Yes. Look. If no. Great question. Look, the balance is very important. The balance is very important. The balance between authority and trust. So on one hand, you have to be authoritative. God has given you his authority. So if the data shows that a 15-year-old should not be on the phone more than an hour per day, then the data is supporting. If you come and say, no, 5 minutes, then it's authority more than love. Of course, it has to be this. But at the end of the day, we are linked by an agreement, but also we're linked by some data. The data shows this. Dad says that. Abuna says that. It's an agreement of peace. So you sit down with Fadi and with whichever child you're going to get the phone and say, we're going to agree on the amount. Okay? Khalas, let's do that. And I did that with the kids without having to do a contract. I did that with the kids with the curfew. 10, not this, and we agreed on it. And they've got the curfew now, and they're 20s, and they still sticking to the curfew into the 20s. So we'll leave it at that. Sorry for delaying you from Pacino's. They always open anyway, so you've got the Parmas, don't worry about them. God bless you guys. It's a great blessing to discuss this, and hopefully we'll discuss it further in the future. But always remember that the grace of God fills in our gaps. Always try to connect them with Christ. Try to connect yourselves first, because you're the primary role models. They're always going to look at you for guidance. They're going to see how you love Christ, and they're going to emulate that. And they will see through an act. They will see through a show. They will know whether you actually love Christ. There's a questionnaire that you might virtually think of yourself. If your child get asked, what is the most important thing in mom's or dad's life, what would they say? Is he going to say fishing or cycling or his work? What will the kid answer? Will the kid answer God, the church, service? Will the kid answer the most important thing in my dad's life is his work or his friends or his job or his car? He loves his car, whatever. So when you connect personally, the kids will connect with you. So you connect with you and they connect with Christ. And this is this unbreakable triangle. God give you... Yes, Eddie. Sure. Okay, guys. One line. I know you need to go. Look, there was... Look, at the end of the day, of course, it depends what the contract is about, because we are not talking, clearly we're not talking about a simple phone or curfew. We're talking about more crucial stuff. So if the contract has to be with authority, and the agreement has to be an agreement, not a rule. So there has to be a bit of back and forth. And if we are fearing that this contract will backfire, especially if it's an adult, backfire, and they will leave the home. For instance, my daughter is 27 years old, and I want her to come home by 11 or 12 midnight, and she doesn't want to, and I'm going to make an agreement with her. When they're an adult and they are now their own person, of course, your authority becomes limited. You have an authority when they are at home or when they depend on you, and you can lay the law. But when they are adults, you don't have as much authority, because they can leave. They have got their own life and they're adults. So it really depends on the issue itself. If the issue is crucial, and what they are doing specifically for which you're writing the contract, if it's clearly wrong, you cannot accept wrong. You have to say, this is something that I don't believe in. What you're doing is wrong. What you bringing home, whatever you're doing home is wrong. And I've asked Abuna, we can ask Abuna. So the only way in this situation is to involve more people in the contract. And this comes back to your point, Linda. Involve Abuna in the contract, involve another person in the contract. If we are able to get a consensus and the person still wants to push the agenda and continue doing something that you're not agreeing to, at the end of the day, it's your house. And you cannot accept something that is wrong just because they're going to stay at home and we're going to let them do what they do. So, of course, we're going to activate every single method and every single person that you can involve to get the contract to be the right way. But if it's not happening and we are still continuing the wrong thing, you just have to stand up for what's right as a parent, as a responsible parent. Yeah, look, if the person, you cannot say the child, but if it's an adult, it's an adult. If it's an adult, it's your responsibility to stand up for what you believe in, to stand up for what Christianity is kind of making you responsible for. You try as much as possible, because you know that if they leave home, there will be consequences to that. But I'm sure they want to stay home in general, but you cannot have this privilege and abuse it. The privilege of staying in your home, in your place, has to come with consequences, and you're still in control, but to save them, try to involve others in the agreement. And that's the beauty of having church, being able to involve others so they can get to an agreement. Hopefully this answers the question. Thanks, guys. Any questions, we might answer it maybe in a few months. Write them down, don't forget them. We might do a Slido. And glory be to God forever. Amen. I'll leave it to Fedi.